Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Morrowind Book Club. Today we find ourselves in the Vivek Hall of Justice secret library. That's right, they've got a secret library with books. Since we have contracted porphyric hemophilia, which is the disease which will lead into vampirism, and we want to do some research to get an idea of what we're getting into, I figured we would go ahead and read, well, at least for now, Vampires of Vvardenfell, Volume 1. So let us begin. These are some excerpts because they didn't want to write the whole book. Anyways, the violent antipathy of Morrowind culture toward necromancy ensures that vampires are virtually unknown in Morrowind. The temple does not acknowledge the existence of Western vampire hunting orders. Nonetheless, interviews with temple officials persuade me that the Dunmer of Morrowind are experienced and knowledgeable in the handling of these menaces. On the other hand, they freely admit that even a large community of vampires might easily escape detection in the remote wastelands or in the subterranean labyrinths of abandoned strongholds and wizard towers. I believe that's where we found ours. Wasn't it a Dwemer ruin? I can't remember. I already can't remember. It just happened. The Ash Vampire of Ashlander legend is not undead. Sorceries and blessings affecting the undead reportedly have no effect on these creatures. No specimen has ever been examined, and no references have ever linked these legends with the known clans of Tamrielic vampires. Vvardenfell's three known bloodlines differ greatly in their approach to prey. The Quara bloodline features exceptional strength and endurance, and attacks in a state of ecstatic frenzy. Onde vampires are potent spellcasters, seeking to hypnotize victims before feeding, while the swift and agile Bernie clan vampires prefer stealth and ambush, first poisoning the victim with a bite, then withdrawing to a safe distance, returning to feed only when the prey has weakened. I believe, I could be wrong on this one, but I believe we've been infected with the Onde. We'll say bloodline. Actually, I'm not even sure. Part of me wants to look it up. Part of me doesn't want to look it up because I've been trying to just focus on just the game and not take outside information. All right. Anyways, continue. I will continue. It is supposed that vampirism is contracted from wounds received from a vampire. Since few victims survive vampiric attacks or feedings, the process of contracting the disease is little understood. Some have suggested that victims may willingly submit themselves to the will of a vampire, but no real evidence of this exists. During the incubation phase, lasting up to 72 hours, alright, so I've got 72 hours before I turn. The vampirism disease exhibits no symptoms, and may be cured by general spellcraft or cult blessings. However, during incubation, some victims have reported sleep disturbances and troubling dreams. After symptoms are exhibited, however, the disease is incurable and irreversible. I know that this is not true. All right, so that is Vampires of Vvardenfell Volume 1. You know what? Why don't we read Volume 2? Yeah, we'll read them both and just put them into the same video. Why not? If you're gonna read the first one, we might as well go ahead and read the second volume. Get the whole story, right? All right, so here we got Vampires of Vvardenfell, Volume 2. In the West, a shadowy fraternity of vampire hunters is believed to be primarily composed of formerly afflicted vampires who have been cured of the disease. According to legend, the vampire hunters refuse to reveal the cure to the disease for fear that it may encourage depraved thrill seekers from deliberately infecting themselves. That's us! In the East, the Western tradition of vampire hunters is unknown. Vampirism is known to be incurable, and even if it were curable, a cured vampire would be an abomination to be destroyed. Since the disease is infallibly cured, if treated within 3 days, failure to treat oneself after an encounter with a vampire would be considered a deliberate attempt to contract the disease, and a mark of monstrous depravity. Yeah, I guess that's probably about right. In temple doctrine, one ancient tradition holds that, among his many other crimes, Molag Bal, the father of monsters, spawned the first vampire upon the corpse of a defeated foe. Several different versions of this story exist, with the foe variously identified as a Daedra Lord, a temple saint, or a powerful beast creature. This account of the origin of vampirism is peculiar to Morrowind, appearing nowhere else in Imperial lore. Unfortunately, scholarly inquiry upon this topic is discouraged by the Temple, which controls access to the only substantial collection of historical and cultural records in Morrowind. Though the Dunmer believe the disease is incurable, a buoyant armiger of former years named Galor Rithari insisted that he was cured of vampirism. Initially imprisoned by the Temple for heresy, he later recanted, was released, and served his final years as a librarian in the Hall of Wisdom in Vivec. Galur Rithari. Wait, we saw that name, I believe. Anyways, let me see. And served his final years as a librarian in the Hall of Wisdom in Vivec. It is interesting that previous to his imprisonment for heresy, Rithari had been posted to the buoyant armiger garrison at Bal-Ur, a pilgrimage site known as the birthplace of Molag Bal. Oh, we have got to. Okay, that's a clue. We need to track this down. That's awesome. So we got the Hall of Wisdom in Vivec. That name, Galur Rithari. Okay, I know we are in the book club.
Yes, Outlander.
We saw Galur Rithari's papers. That's right. We saw these on the shelf last time. Oh, I almost just grabbed them. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably sneak. I'm used to reading books. Okay. You know what? Let's read this. We're going on a vampire reading book reading extravaganza. The private papers of Galur Rithari, buoyant armiger, handwritten manuscripts bound as folios, excerpts. Outnumbered and isolated, I yielded to my foe, the creature dressed like a gentleman, and I hoped for an honorable treatment. Instead, I found myself a feast for a blood-drinking monster. Shamed by my corruption and despairing of my own welfare, I passively acquiesced in my gradual integration into the affairs of Clan Undae. I made no human my prey, only beasts, and kept myself apart from the other clankin. Nonetheless, I abandoned hope and lived like a beast. Drawn by intimations of my former life, I visited my former post at Bal-Ur, hoping perhaps to atone in some for my crimes by preying upon its monsters or perishing under their attacks. It is there that by chance I made petition to the Lord of Troubles, Molag Bal, at an altar deep in the caverns beneath the pilgrim's shrine. I was surprised and thrilled and terrified when Molag Bal, or some aspect or agent of that Daedra Lord, offered me a chance to cure myself of vampirism. In return for a favor, of course. However, with no hope for my soul or spirit unless I might be cured, I undertook his quest. Rithari sought and obtained a cursed soul gem of mysterious nature from a deep cavern on the northern slopes of Dagoth-Ur, delivering it to Molag Bal's shrine in Bal-Ur. I placed the gem within the basin before the altar, and instantly experienced a blinding of pain and terror that I cannot express in words, except that it had seemed afterward that I had been asleep and dreaming, that I was being sliced by thousands of tiny knives from my bowels inside out. That sounds wonderful. I awoke before the altar, and gazed in the reflection of my own sword blade at my own face, no longer a blood-seeking beast of teeth and empty eyes. So we have all the information we need here. In this one book club, I'm pretty sure we've got the biggest clues that we need to get out of basically to get the cure to this. I'm going to be taking this book as reference, and I think we got all the information we need. All right, so this has been a Morrowind Book Club book reading extravaganza. Sure. So basically, we've figured out the clues needed to cure ourselves of vampirism. You know, before we've actually fully succumbed to the disease. But I wanted to know this before we fully turned, so that way there, when we were ready to rid ourselves of this horrible disease, this horrible curse, then we could go ahead and undo that. But that's gonna do it for today in the Morrowind Book Club. If you like the Morrowind Book Club, give the video a thumbs up. Otherwise, get lost. And until next time, I'd like to ask you all to game on.